Welcome back to Path to Play, everybody. It is Rory here.
And Valentina.
And we are here with part two with Eman, but this time the coaching side. We gave Eman a brief introduction and had a long conversation with him last week. So if you missed that, go back and listen to that one because there's a lot of good information. But like I said, this time we will be focusing on Eman the coach, not Eman the player.
Yeah, what a gift that Eman has both perspectives here. So,
Yeah,
of
yeah. No, I'm excited to be back. Thank you guys for having me again.
course.
Of course. All right. So, kind of like how we started last week, can you just give us an overall experience of what being a full-time club soccer coach has been like?
So it was actually during COVID. I started coaching high school soccer because my two brothers were still in high school, and they were like, "Hey, we need a coach. Like this guy's gonna quit." And so I applied. I got the job, and then that's how my current boss, Anthony, started. He called me. He was like, "Hey, I see you're coaching. You want to do it?" And so I started coaching here at Snohomish United for 2 years, and I already have previous experience. I grew up playing here. They offered me a full time job, and so now it's honestly one of my dream jobs right now. I work with great people. I'm around soccer, which I love a lot, and I get to keep learning more and more about how the landscape of soccer is changing, and it's cool being part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's your weekly schedule like? What do your practice schedules look like?
I have 3 teams, so, we train, 3 times a week minimum, and I'm normally out on the fields from 5 to 9 p.m. So,
Wow.
just 4 hours, it's different groups, different projects, different goals, and so it's a lot of prepping for those teams and just kinda seeing what we need to do to keep going.
What teams do you coach?
So, right now, we're currently in tryout season, or tryout time, and
Right,
so
that's right.
this coming year, I'm gonna be coaching the U19 and U17 ECNL group for the boys, and then the
Nice.
U17 ECNL RL team for the girls.
Okay.
So high school
And
age groups.
yeah, which is kind of I feel like when it starts to get more intense from all sides, that's a handful you have there.
Totally, totally.
Wait, so you mentioned a couple of acronyms there, which
Mhm,
are is in relation to league. So we have this burning question across many different forums.
mhm.
What, as a coach, tell us a little bit more about what the current landscape is right now for youth soccer.
Okay,
Both, it can be local, it can be regional, just whatever you think it looks like and how it has changed over recent years.
okay, so, I guess I'll start on the national level. There's a lot of leagues nationally. MLS Next, I believe it's homegrown. Homegrown is where the Sounders play, a lot of the MLS academies play. That is the highest level there is right now. That's free for the parents. And so that's
Mm,
why it's a very elite, very exclusive, very desirable league. But that's not where you could just go open training, open tryouts, that's not really club soccer. Then we get to club soccer. So the ECNL is the highest league there is. That's the Elite Clubs National League, and they
mhm,
have also a second division called the ECNL RL, which is now the more regional leagues where you have a little bit more local clubs, and that would be kind of their second division. So on top of that, then you also have the second division for the
okay.
MLS, which is MLS Academy, but that's a much more local league, and a lot of it is different, varying from region to region. There's places where the MLS Next Academy League or MLS Next 2 is pretty good, but for example, here in the Pacific Northwest, I would argue that it's at the same level, if not below, the ECNL RL leagues. So
Mm.
it's something where then you start seeing stuff where it's the NL or the RCL. For us, that's our state league. You start seeing state leagues all over, but it's a pyramid that's super confusing, so
Yeah.
I know a lot of parents do have questions, but it really does vary on where you are in the US and how the clubs do it.
Right. All the leagues that you just said, not all of them are available across all the states. Is
I
that
I
right?
think, the only one that is not really available, I would say, is for Washington, we have the RCL. That's a state league, right? But the ECNL
Oh,
is a national one. The
right.
ECNL-RL is a national one. Both the MLS ones are also national. Then on the girls' side, you also have GA and the GA Aspire, which is their second division. So a lot of the states and a lot of the clubs try and play in the national leagues because they are more competitive than the local teams, and it's kind of a filter where those local state teams, they end up getting players going to those bigger, more I guess you could say the travel soccer, right? Where
Right.
it's like they look for more competitive teams, and that's why it's a little bit bigger. It's not as localized.
That's right. Okay. So I obviously didn't know about any of these leagues, and
Mhm,
it sounds like a lot of these have just been added in the last few years because, well, I can't even count the years I've been out of high school now. But regardless, how are you supposed to know where to play, right? Like, say I'm a parent and I'm trying to place my daughter or my son on a team
mhm.
that's in one of the many leagues that you just said. How are you supposed to know where to even look and what each one is the right fit for your goals, per se, or I don't know, wherever your child's age is at the time?
So I would say honestly, the younger you are, it's okay to be playing at a more local team because the goal should be let's make sure that we develop a love for the game. That's where a lot of the development comes, right? But if as you grow up, as your goals progress, you want to be looking for one of the clubs that are playing in the ECNO. The ECNO ends up sending, especially on the girls' side, they end up sending a lot of girls to play D1. On the boys' side as well, the other one that sends a lot of college scouts is also the MLS, homegrown, which is that one where it's Sounders and stuff. But it's for me, honestly, in my opinion, I think that ECNO is the one that you should be looking at if
Mhm.
you want to look to try and play at the next level, which is the college level for most of the kids. They
That's
they
right.
they do a good job giving exposure to the players on both boys and girls, and there's statistics backing up why they're one of the best leagues to play in.
That's
Right. So going off of what you said earlier with the MLS next being the academies for the professional MLS teams. So those are you can't just go try out for those. So if you want to place your kid at the best level, you can't just place him in that team. So looking for the ECNL teams in your
Mhm,
area, if they perform well there, that puts them in a great position to go on and
mhm.
move forward.
Totally. Yeah, no, like you said, the ECNL, the good thing about it is, it's open to everybody, right? You just have to make sure that you're competing at the level. And so the ECNL, no matter what, they require their teams in their league to go to a certain amount of showcases a year, which is part of why they try and get college coaches to go to stuff, and that's where they do a great job giving exposure to the players, and so that's something where you should be looking up the ECNL teams in your area. You should be trying to go and make those teams, you know, uh, if that's what your goal is.
Yeah. For reference, I played ECNL the last 2 years of my high school career, and that's effectively, like, when I committed. What's the difference now between just ECNL and then the ECNL RL that you mentioned? I'm guessing that that stands for regional league or
Mhm.
something? Okay,
So
what's that?
so the ECNL, it's very exclusive. There's only a certain amount of teams. I think here in
Mhm,
Washington, it's 8 or 9 teams,
mm,
and so those teams play against each other, and they don't play against any other teams in the state. Right, so it's the best of the best, and then the
mhm,
ECNL RL, at least the way it's set up here in Washington, it is, composed of the 2nd teams of the
okay,
ECNL clubs, and then it's
Mm.
also made up of a few other teams that got accepted into the league that have performed pretty good in the past and now are allowed into the ECNL RL. So that way it helps out with not traveling as much, but it's a 2nd division for the ECNL, but you do have a few other clubs that only have the ECNL RL program.
okay. So, basically, different tiers of team levels can exist within one same league.
Correct, correct.
Okay, okay. And so what are you saying to parents if they come to you with questions on where their athlete should play? If assuming that they're considering several of the competitive leagues that you just talked about.
So if they're considering playing in the ECNL, what I honestly ask them is like, what are your goals? You know,
Mm.
I think that is a very important thing as a coach to understand from the parents, but also for the players. That's a conversation that I also do ask the players. You know, especially when you're at the U19, U17, U16 age, even you want to be playing a lot. You want to be also playing against the best players there is, you know. And so what I ask them is, if you want to improve, you have to really be pushing yourself. If you're playing, for example, there's a state league, I guess, here. If you're playing there and you're winning every game, you're not getting the exposure, or you're not even challenging yourself, or you're playing in the ECNL with a team where it's they might not be the best team, but you're playing against some of the best players in the state. And honestly, here in the Northwest, we have probably one of the best conferences there is. Soccer here in Washington has been really crazy, and we have been producing a lot of very, very high level players. If you want to be playing at the next level, not only do you have to actually be getting on the pitch and playing, but you also have to make sure that you're playing against some of the best guys. Because in college, it's cutthroat. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta make sure that when you're on the field, you're competing, and if you don't have that experience playing against high level players, it's gonna be a very hard transition for you to go from playing against high school kids, then going to play against men.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I wish I could write this in a book for people. You should write a book
Yeah,
so that parents
seriously.
can reference his handbook. Seriously. This is
That
key.
is my least favorite subject. I don't like writing.
One question I have about the ECNL is it was just coming onto the scene when we were in high school.
Mhm.
And so now that it is that top national division besides the MLS next, are the players who play ECNL, are they able to play high school soccer or are they year round so they can't play high school soccer?
So, short answer is yes, players not that play in the ECNL can play in high school. The ECNL, we have our season, right? But then we stop for right before high school. The guys have high school tryouts, they play their season, and then once high school season's over, we start back up. And it's not that's not how it used to be in the past, but the ECNL, once DA stopped, the ECNL grew exponentially because it saw an opening and it accepted teams, and it it grew a lot.
Right. Yeah, one question I really wanted to ask was, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the past couple of years? And I'm assuming that's one of the biggest because it really seems like the ECNL has a firm position up there at the top.
Yeah, yeah. So for us, one of the biggest changes, ECNO did a good job stepping in and making sure that their platform gets good exposure. And now, more recently, you start seeing MLS next too. You start seeing GA also try on the girls' side, try and start growing, right? And now they also have their second divisions. And so I would say it's a lot more diluted. And
Mm.
the reality is, youth soccer in the US is a market, is a business.
Mhm.
And so clubs are trying to just make up these new leagues where, hey, look, like we're better, we're doing all these things, but the ECNL still does have its firm grasp at the top. You know, they're still first place, but you just have to make sure you do your research and you're looking at these other clubs that you're looking to join and seeing if they offer what the ECNL offers.
Yeah. On the bright side, I guess there's more options for whoever is looking to play in some way, shape, or form. And then I think you said it well. On the other hand, there's risk of you falling into, a space that doesn't necessarily align with your goals, right?
Totally, totally. I agree with what you're saying. I think the good thing about having so many options is that it helps grow soccer overall here in the country. Especially, I think soccer's grown a lot ever since even we were in high school, and that's
Hmm.
something where I think slowly it's going to start producing more and more players. But it does suck that there is no direct pathway. You know, like this level, then this level, then this level, then you get to the very top,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
then a lot of kids end up getting getting lost or overlooked because people
Mhm.
want to keep them there at their club when the right thing to do is if, for example, when we played Rory, it was the state league, and then people knew that DA was that higher level. That's how I actually ended up getting pushed on. It was I was doing good, and my coaches and the staff here were like, "Hey, you need to go play. That's the next level for you. You need to push yourself." And a lot of clubs don't do that anymore. You know, and
Mhm.
now that ECNL is the top, you should be looking to play at an ECNL level team if that's an option, because that's realistically that's the best there is right now. And clubs
Yeah.
don't push kids on like they used to.
Yeah. This is really helpful because I can guarantee there's a lot of parents out there that don't have this clarity.
So, speaking about parents not having clarity, what are some of the most common questions you get from parents?
Uh, Honestly, I think one of the most common questions from parents is how can we start looking and contacting college coaches? And so that for me is something where I started learning it when I was in high school, but I did realize like how to send an email out to coaches, how to start building your highlight videos. And a lot of the questions that I get now are college coaches, college exposure, what's the best thing to do, whether it's camps, showcases, because everything's expensive now. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
people want to know the right things to do, and that's something where I'm learning. I'm talking to my bosses. I'm talking to the people that have been there before, and seeing what the best things are. And so now I'm helping the parents navigate their way into that college environment.
That's right. So, in that sense, do you feel like one, you as a coach, and then also Snohomish United as a club, do you feel like there's resources that you can offer parents, or is there specific support that you give to parents when it's situations like this, that a parent is seeking advice on? I have, this budget and my athlete wants to play in college and they're let's say a sophomore. What should I spend my time, energy, and money on n- now?
The club does not have like a handbook, and I don't know if any
Hmm.
clubs honestly have a handbook on how to do it. But for me, I do try and tell for the boys side, you're not recruitable when you're a sophomore. So one of your focuses should
Oh,
be
right.
starting to build the highlight videos, stuff like that, learning how to reach out to college coaches, and even starting to do it, even though they can't respond to you. That is something where you should start learning because it is a skill. Creating your email, introducing yourself to college coaches, and building that highlight video. And then once you start hitting junior, senior year, you're recruitable now. And I don't know if this is the exact same for the girl side. Girls might be recruitable earlier, but I know once you hit that junior, senior year, if a college coach is interested in you and they invite you to a camp, you absolutely should go to that camp. There's not
Hmm.
it's not going to be better than going to a showcase, them watching you play 45 minutes where you might get the ball for 2 minutes,
Right.
Get yourself in front of them, go to those camps, especially if they invited you, and you just want to make sure that you're directly in front of them as much as you can.
Hmm. And having a relationship established, right? Like we've talked
Yeah,
about this
we've
a
talked
lot.
about that a lot.
Yeah.
There's nothing more valuable than going to a camp where the coaches individually asked you to come because you know they're going to be watching you. And like you said, it's not a game where you're touching it 5 times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and it all starts with exactly what you said, the email, like the reaching out and making sure that you're actually sending a thorough message
Mhm.
that is personalized to said coach. And that's hard, and I feel like a lot of that is also curated through the coach. So in this case, you're kind of being the middleman in the whole communication stream, which is a tough job.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something where you do see, and I was listening to your podcast last or the week before with your mom, and it is true. I think that the coach does have a bigger role in helping you get to that college level than what some parents might think. If the coach doesn't put in the effort to teach the player or even to communicate and talk to college coaches as well, I think that's something where it really can be beneficial for players, and that's something that I hope players growing up understand.
Okay, now moving on a little bit. What is one thing that parents who are experiencing the youth sports journey should keep in mind?
I think is at the younger ages, for new parents especially, it's understanding that if you really want your kid to develop, you gotta make sure that they have fun. I've been seeing a
Mhm.
lot of burnout where some kids are training 6 times a week, on top of that doing
Wow.
private trainings and stuff. 'Cause private trainings is a big market now,
Mhm.
and when it used to be maybe going out with your brother to the field or your sibling to the field, now it's you're picking up these expensive lessons with a personal trainer. And it's something where it can be beneficial, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bash it, but it's important that if the kid doesn't wanna do it, like, make sure he's having fun or she's having
Mhm.
fun,
Mhm.
and I've seen kids where there's this one kid, for example, that he started playing my first year, and he was playing a year up. It was a U8, so he was 7 years old, and he was the most shy kid ever, and at trainings, I would focus on, "Hey, like, are you having fun?" I'd make it fun, I'd be talking to him, and the kid developed his own love for the game, and naturally, you start seeing the kids pick up the ball themselves, going out, kicking the ball, and you just see these kids that never wanna leave the field, and now the 3 years later, the kid is very, very good. You can see that he puts in work by himself, and he's honestly a baller, and that's something where I hope parents and, players understand where if you're not enjoying the game, it's gonna be hard for you to keep going? Really emphasize, enjoy the game, have fun, learn to love it, and then development's gonna come with that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's huge. I feel like that's huge and probably something that we talk about quite a lot on here.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think I totally agree with you in that you start like those early years are just so important for becoming a fan of playing soccer and
Mhm,
having that be what you want to do. And later on, you can focus on some more private trainings and things like that in college recruiting, sending your emails. But you really don't want to start that too young because it's really not going to pay off that much if your kid burns out by the time they're
mhm,
16.
totally.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Development will come. Okay, last and most difficult question of them all for you. What's the best or your favorite part about being a coach?
That is a good question. That's a very good question.
It gets everyone.
I think the reason I really do enjoy being a coach is, I mean, it really is just being kind of the person that the kids look up to, and seeing these kids where they're super happy to see me sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, Coach Eman, Coach Eman." And being one of those mentors, I guess you could say, where
Mhm.
my job as a coach is not only do I teach you soccer, but well, I want to also teach you how to be a good person. I want to teach you how
Yes.
how I fell in love with the game. I want to see how you fall in love with the game. I want to hear the stories about you getting new juggling records, going and playing, scoring a goal in a game. I find a lot of fulfillment
Mhm.
just seeing that these kids kind of see me as a role model, and not only that, but also kind of like as the reason they like playing soccer, and
Yeah.
it makes me happy to see them also come and joke around, and honestly seeing them grow. I've been around it long enough where I remember some kids were 2.5 feet tall, and now they're getting up to my shoulder, and they're still loving the game, and so it's honestly super super fulfilling.
Yeah, that's a great word to use, like, the ultimate way to fill up your cup through
Mhm.
your job, and it doesn't feel like a job, I'm sure, and don't be surprised if, everyone's reaching out to you to join your team after this episode. I have a feeling everyone's gonna want Coach Eman for their kids after
Yeah.
this, so don't worry, guys, I'll send out his phone number, his email.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you got me tearing up over here with that answer.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
inspiring.
All right, well, we really appreciate you coming on again and sharing your coaching wisdom. I'm sure we will do some stuff with you moving forward in the future, but this is wisdom that nobody can provide except for someone like you.
Yeah, seriously.
Awesome. Super happy that you guys had me, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys again.
Yes,
Sweet.
you'll be back on.
All right, we'll see you guys all next week.
See you guys next week. Thanks, Eman.